I'm beginning to assume that the proper way to think about these hallucinogens is as catalysts for language formation, as catalysts for the project of communication, and that the end result of the project of communication is that we become what we behold. In other words, there is not the sense of the observed and the observer. These two polarities of an experience are merged in the act of pure perception. And this is something emerging out of our biological organization. It's not a cultural development the way a new invention or a new mathematical algorithm or something like that would be. It's an evolution of our neural capacity. And then let me just say one more thing about it, and then we can talk about it. There is a model for this in nature that makes clear, I think, what I'm driving at. As many of you know, octopi change colors. We learn this from wonderful television programs about nature that keep us from being in nature, but nevertheless inform us of the details of nature. Octopi change color. They have a very large repertoire of dots, blushes, spottings, ripples, and so forth. It was for a long time thought that this was camouflage. Now it's been understood by people who study animal communication that this is not camouflage, this is language. The octopus does not make small mouth noises that move through space, because in the aqueous medium there are certain physical problems that make that an improbable way to do business. What the octopus does is it is its own syntax. It doesn't generate syntax, it becomes syntax. So the mind of the octopus is worn on its surface. Its thoughts ripple across its geometry as color changes. It is in effect, operationally, a naked mind. Not a naked brain, a naked mind. So when one octopus encounters another, by the mere act of looking, it can tell how long it's been since the other one has eaten, how long it's been since it's had sex, what its general attitude toward the world is at that moment, so forth and so on. It is able to visually apprehend the mental universe of the other. This is why octopi extrude ink into the water. It's because it's the only way they can create a private dimension for themselves. Because for an octopus, to be beheld is to be understood. So you can think of octopus ink as correction fluid for misspoken cephalopods, if you like. Well, in a sense, this is what we, I think, are headed for. In a way, we can already do this in a very crude way. We have faces. No other animal has a face. Other animals have fronts to their heads. But we have faces. It's an area where a lot of musculature is under the surface, is under the control of the intent to communicate. So by scowling, squinting, rolling one's eyes, looking away, so forth and so on, we communicate. Imagine if that communicative ability, rather than being confined to a few square inches on the front of the skull, were to spread out over the entire body. And of course, for the octopus in an aqueous medium, it can fold and unfold itself. It can reveal and hide parts of its body very quickly. It can, in fact, communicate faster than we can communicate with small mouth noises. And this ability to communicate is so important to the biological foundations of octopus existence that when the octopi, all of which, I'm not sure, evolved in the shallow waters near coastlines, when those environments became evolutionarily crowded, the octopi evolved into the benthic depths, into the parts of the ocean where no light ever reaches. But in order to maintain lines of communication over long periods of time, they evolved phosphorescent organs on their bodies and eyelid-like membranes covering those phosphorescent organs. So in the benthic depths of the sea, all that one octopus ever encounters of another is its pure linguistic intent. Nothing else can be seen. So I think that the DMT elves, all I can figure is that they are trying to catalyze us to move up the scale in the refining of the bandwidth of our communication skills. Yeah.
Do you feel that after your experience with them, with DMT elves, that you come any closer to expressing your communication through those means?
You mean, do I feel more able to do that?
Yeah. Do you feel that you're any closer, or is it otherwise just maybe an entertainment instead of an enlightenment, if we aren't able to actually reach it?
Well, no. They urge one toward a kind of glossolalia, a kind of ecstatic verbal activity that is devoid of attachment to the culturally contrived dictionary. And for a long time I could hear them do this. I could hear this stuff, this DMT gibberish flowing through my mind. And then eventually I became able to do it. And it's immensely satisfying. This relates back to what we discussed this morning about how there's DMT in the human brain being produced for some reason. You see, we do tend to connect successful linguistic activity with the visual cortex. In other words, if somebody successfully communicates something to you, you say, I see what you mean. Now it's clear to me. You've painted a picture. Why is it that when we want to say that language is succeeding, we reach for visual metaphors? It's because we trust our eyes. We don't trust our ears. The world is defined for us as something seen. And the ambiguity of ordinary communication, which is culturally defined, and for each of us defined by basically where on the surface of the planet you first saw the light of day. You know, the French speak French, the Dutch speak Dutch. Why can't the English learn how to speak? Or no, that's something else. But what I'm talking about is an language that you don't learn from a culture, but that you learn in the same way that you know how to breathe, you know how to eat, you know how to grasp. It's in the organic structure rather than in the cultural software. Yeah.
But is it the communication? Is it with other? Can you communicate with others?
Other human beings?
Yeah. On this level?
Well, you can if you're both loaded on DMT, but that's such a chaotic environment in which to sort this kind of stuff out. That's what drove me to the Amazon in the first place, was the DMT flash is so maddeningly short. I mean, you're trying to sort all this out and assure yourself you're not dead as a doornail in about 2.5 minutes. And I thought, we need to slow it down and stretch it out. Why does it have to be like a Bugs Bunny cartoon run backwards at 5 times normal speed? I mean, you just cannot get a grasp on it. And over the years, judicious manipulation of these substances and all kinds of special conditions, eventually you see what it is. And it's almost as though language is trying to be born out of matter. The pure energy thing of 50s science fiction may in fact be a fairly accurate take on where we're headed. We are headed toward becoming pure syntactical intentionality, just shedding the monkey, shedding any umbilical cord into matter. Matter is becoming a fairly uncomfortable dimension for us to be in, and I dare say matter would probably be highly relieved to have us just move on so that the rainforest chipmunks, glaciers, and schooling salmon could go back to doing what they do best.